So, a little while I mentioned that the UN was conducting an investigation into poverty in the UK. And as I'm sure you're aware by now, they've just released their findings. And it's worse than I expected. Not because of the number of people living in poverty and living in severe poverty and working poverty. I expected that because I'm very aware of what's actually happening in the country. But the sheer ignorance, the distance, and the fact that so many politicians just don't give a crap, that was something I wasn't aware of. I mean, I know Esther McVey doesn't care about children going hungry in this country. I know Theresa May doesn't care about children going hungry in this country and veterans on the streets. But I didn't realise how many politicians, how many cabinet members, how many MPs had the exact same standpoint. This investigation didn't just look into the numbers, didn't just interview a number of people from food banks and from charities. It also interviewed a few of these actual members of parliament, the people who could actually push to change this. And it states unbelievably clearly that they would rather give tax breaks to the wealthy millionaires and billionaires in the United Kingdom than putting that money where it belongs. So many of them actually think that you can survive happily, easily, have an easy life if you're on benefits. That people just aren't living in poverty in this country. That's the fact that they are so far out of reality leaves me at a loss for words. Esther McVey has just stepped down, and I am thankful to see that horrible, revolting excuse of a human being gone. She's probably going to make a play for Prime Minister. I think other people who have suggested that are absolutely right. She probably will. She's been replaced by Amber Rudd. Amber Rudd, who helped Theresa May bury all accusations, all claims and cases of sexual misconduct, of sexual abuse, of abuse and child abuse when it came to Conservative members of Parliament. The woman who took the fall for Windrush, despite the fact that it was Theresa May. That woman. Amber Rudd, who said the universal credit system is fantastic and it's had a massive positive effect in her area, Hastings. Hastings has seen an 80% rise in demand for food banks since universal credits have rolled out. And yet she's all for them. Not only do we not see this on BBC, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I had BBC on from about 4 o'clock this morning in the background at work, so maybe I did miss it. But as far as I know, BBC did not report on that. So it leaves me to think, when all's said and done and we're out the EU, given that we tend to blame the EU for all of our problems, it's never Theresa May, it's never the Conservatives, it's never austerity, which no one with credible expertise has said actually helps people. When we're out of the EU and we can no longer blame the EU for all of this country's problems, will we then blame the United Nations? Will Farage come back and try to get us to leave the United Nations? The problems we have in this country, they don't stem from migrants, they don't stem from an overpopulation, they don't stem from a foreign trading body, they don't stem from the continent, they stem from plutocracy. The wealthy elite, the millionaires and billionaires dictating policies, telling you that, hey, you work 40, 50, 60, 70 hours a week, but it is your fault that you're struggling to make ends meet because you're just not working hard enough. Most of those fuckers were born into their wealth, never worked a hard day in their entire damn lives. But they are the privileged few. They make the rules. They tell you austerity is the only way to fix this fucking country. And over and over and over again, we hear experts say, no, that's not how you fix the problems you have. That's not how you fix the growing poverty in the United Kingdom. But we don't hold them to account. We let Jacob Rees-Mogg come on TV and give his little speeches, and yet we don't call him on the fact that he voted against raising the minimum wage. We don't call Amber Rudd out for that either. And even now, even today, I will have discussions that will probably turn a little bit heated with people who tell me, no, well, we shouldn't really raise the minimum wage that much because then the country will just, it won't work. Companies won't pay it. We need less people in the country because then we've got more power. We need more sovereignty. We can't be dealing with the EU. They tell us what to do. What exactly are they telling us? I mean, I can think of one. I mean, I've been in care long enough and I've heard enough stories that I can think of one thing that the EU tells us to do. Whether it's good or bad, personally, I think it's bad. That's fire extinguishers. Before we joined the EU, practically the whole fire extinguisher would be the appropriate colour rather than just the little strip. That's something. But whenever I ask people, what is it that the EU's forcing us to do that you don't like? That never comes up. I'm always ready to give them that. No. The problems that this country have don't come from from Europe. They come from the wealthy elite running the country for the wealthy elite. That is plutocracy. And that's what we have. If you have an issue with the European Union because we don't vote for the people who run it, we don't vote for the mass majority of the government we have that do make the rules we have to live by and affect us on a day-to-day basis. We don't vote for the people who vote against raising the minimum wage, who vote against controlled house prices, who vote against the public's best interest over and over and over again. We don't get to decide if they have power. They do. Their rich mates do. So yeah, the UN report into poverty in the UK came out. It's worth a read. If you can find the interviews, it's worth watching some of them. I'm genuinely lost for words. I personally don't want to believe that the overwhelming number of politicians that run this country are so unbelievably disgusting. But that's what we've seen. And I honestly don't know where we go from there. We can keep voting them out, but unless people are willing to take that chance and vote for someone else, to break away from that message that's been pushed on them over and over again, we're not going to get change. Keep voting for Conservatives, this will happen. And if you don't vote, this will happen. Because that's how they get in. That's how I have to end the video. I lost for words because this report is so fucking hideous. There you go, enjoy your weekend.